weighted competition, and that's what happened Saturday. So very proud to say that I think every position unit graded out as a champion as a unit. On the defensive line, incredible effort. Tracy Sprinkle, Draymond Jones, B.B. Landers. There's more. I'll get to them in a minute. You have linebackers, Dante Booker, Jerome Baker, Chris Worley. Great to see Worley back full speed. Played a lot of plays and played very well. 93% grade out. 5 tackles, 3 assists, tackle for loss for PBU. Jordan Fuller, safety. Damon Webb got Donald mentioned. If they would have counted as interception, I understand they would have graded the champion, but they did not. Jordan Fuller is really starting to be a good player for us. Players of the game. Corners. Yeah, just the 3 corners made honorable mention. Kevin Sheffield, David Arnett, and Moore, they did great champions. And players of the game, so not much anyone's surprised. Tyquan Lewis, 2 tackles, a tackle for loss, 4 QB hurries, was all over the place. Jalen Holmes had a tackle for loss, a sack, 3 QB hurries. Sam Hubbard, all over the place, 4 QB hurries, a QB knockdown, 2 assists, tackle for loss. 95% grade out, and Nick Bosa, very upset with himself when he gets sacked. We had 7 QB hurries. 7 QB hurries. He played very well. On offense, wide receivers, Austin Mack, 6 catches, 90 yards, tough as nails. Terry McLaurin, 2 catches and a touchdown. Our leader, spiritual leader and inspirational leader. Johnny Dixon, great to see him just continue to get better, 2 touchdowns. 92% grade on KJ Hill on the day. 12 catches, 100 plus yards. Running back at J.K. Dobbins, 88 yards, 62 yards after contact, 2 explosive runs. And the position that really counts, all 5 graded out as champion, is really doing a good job in growth, development, toughness, something that's been lacking since we had that the best offensive line in the Big Ten League here a few years ago. We're starting to see that culture return, and boy, we need that. Billy Price, 4 knockdowns, 86%. Marco Jones, 5 knockdowns, 86% grade out. Demetrius Knox, 2 starts, 2 champion grades, 3 knockdowns, 82% grade out. Isaiah Prince, 4 knockdowns, 85% out. What a difference a year makes in his growth and development. Michael Jordan, 4 knockdowns, 84% grade out. Tight ends, Marcus Baugh, another champion effort. Had a drop, but 2 catches, 20 yards, obviously the game winner. And his effort was good. Special teams. Special efforts, Denzel Ward had as much impact as anybody in that entire game. He blocked that punt, and that was an incredible effort. We did, and also Denzel downed a punt at a critical time on the 6-yard line. Zach Turnier and KJ Hill had special efforts. Player of the game was Denzel Ward, downed a punt on the 6-yard line and blocked the punt. So with that said, I'll answer any questions for you.
Front row left, Bill. Urban, you said a couple weeks ago about wanting to get J.K. more involved. He didn't play at all in the second quarter, very limited in the fourth quarter. You know, you want to play them both. Is it quarter by quarter each guy gets one? Like,
I don't know. That's up to you can talk to. I'm not micromanaging it right now. I trust them both. I still had 88 yards and however many carries. So yeah, it's. We're throwing the ball so darn well right now too, so there's no, once again, I don't micromanage. That's Kevin Wilson, and that's Tony Alford. They both are practicing very hard. We'd like to get them more carries.
And you would have talked about playing them both at the same time in the 2 back sets. That hasn't happened yet. Is there a reason why you guys haven't used that formation yet?
No, it's in. Those are all game time. If something's not working, it's ways to create issues, but we just haven't used it yet.
Second row right, Tony.
Urban, I assume this was a pretty good weekend for official visits. You had the game, itself. You got the big win. You got to see the environment, but they also saw the culture that is required to come back like that. I was wondering, how important is seeing that culture firsthand on official visits like that? 2
points scored, 2 points less than we've been offered. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's, are you kidding me? I mean, I often look at players and I'll tell them, here's our recruiting pitch. Do you want in or not? And there's nothing else I can say to you. You're in the locker room, you met our players, we're a good, clean program that does things the right way, and they play their tails off. And I'm talking about the ACT scores and the college of education and everything, where you can sit here and go on, or you're looking for something else. So that's what these kind of games do, in those kind of moments. It's not, it's kind of cool. No, it's none of that.
Front row middle, Dave?
Are you ready to talk about special teams yet, Coach?
Yeah, we blocked the punt. Down about the 6-yard line.
That's very true. On kickoffs, as you reviewed the
Yeah, we made some recruiting. We've had, whenever you have a transition of players at a certain position or two, you think we've had some kids leave here in the back end of our defense. We've had some mistakes. And at some point, you got to pay the piper. I mean, we're paying it right now. So some kids playing maybe out of position. We're having our struggles kicking the ball. And we're taking the best kickoff team historically in this conference. We're a very good one. Maybe it's not the best, but we've always been top 2 or top 3, if I remember right. And it's a joke right now. So we had a meeting this morning. We're trying to figure, we don't have a personnel, because you look at two things. Look at the scheme. We've adjusted the scheme somewhat. You look at our kickers, and someone said, "Why don't you just kick it out of the end zone?" I kick out of the end zone every time. We can't. We're the only school in America that can't kick it out of the end zone, even with wind at our back. So that's a great question.
Yeah, that's what I was
I'm not a
going to
kicking expert, but kick the ball out of the end zone. We don't do that.
That's
It's not because of not telling them to kick the ball in the end zone.
Yeah, Blake has had a couple, I know you used Sean this last game, Blake had a couple of, more than a couple, maybe 2 or 3, 4 touchbacks earlier in the season. Is he close to being that type of guy that can, like how close is he to being a guy that can?
And then he drives me on the 28-yard line, middle of the field. And I am not blaming, it's just, I feel the same pain, man, let's go.
And then Paris Campbell, real quick, can you give an update on his status?
Yeah, he's questionable for this week. He got dinged on the kickoff return. He's as tough as nails too, so he's questionable.
Front row right, Austin?
Urban, you were asked about the H word on Saturday night, so you addressed it. I wonder, will that be the extent of it, or do you and JT ever discuss that amongst yourselves?
No. Let's talk about Iowa and their front four and their pressures and all that. That was our conversation we had in the inner sanctum of Lee Hayes. I wouldn't do that unless someone asked me a question. And sometimes I do feel an obligation to, I've done that before at Tim Tebow. When was the appropriate time to say something? Because, when is that time? It's certainly not right now. He had a really good game. As a matter of fact, he had one of the best games in college football history. Certainly one of the best quarters in college football history. Other than that, let's go beat Iowa.
I asked because you've been through this a number of times with a bunch of different players, and JT was one of them a few years ago. I wonder if there's ever been a time where that discussion or the spotlight or the speculation about a campaign, if you've noticed that has an impact on the way they play or if they press, or if you've ever had to have a conversation about that in that sanctum about handling that.
Yeah, Tim was the one because it was overwhelming, the media. We don't do this at Ohio State. We don't send out flyers. We're not going to have billboards put up and all those type of things. We're just going to try to play really well. And Ohio State, you don't have to. Ohio State's, I just saw we're the highest rated Fox game of all time. And we're in the hunt for a lot of big things right now, but the target is Iowa on the road at 3:30, and we don't have those conversations. If it was a immature guy, but JT's, he's a man's man. He's looking at me. If I ever went up to JT and said, "Hey, what do you think about the Heisman? And let's have a conversation," he'd look at me like I had 7 heads. So, who are you to talk to me about something like that? Let's go find a way to win this next game.
Third row right, Jared?
Urban, you reacted, had a great reaction after the game about when you looked at the stat line for Barkley and how well you defended him. And let's say life in the big city, that's what you get this week. You come back with perhaps the other best running back in the league in Wadley and what he does. How much have you studied him, and what worked so well against Barkley that you think stood out that you would want
Our
to see?
D-line, whenever you control, it's a line of scrimmage game, regardless whether you're playing in Iowa, which is a very much a pro-style team. And I have not studied them a lot, so I know they got a great running back. I checked the stats, but I'm all offensive and kicking right now. Later in the week, I'll give you something. Certainly Coach Yano will. But they're two different, very different offenses we're getting ready to face. One spread offense, but regardless, my point is regardless of the spread or pro style, if you control line of scrimmage, good things usually happen in the run game, and that's what happened. I thought we had some very good mesh charters, we call them, on the spread. That one was, we were waiting for it all night, and they ran it near the end of the game, where Sam Hubbard took both, and they've been working on that for a long time.
Far left, Matt?
The winning touchdown play, JT mentioned that was a play that was just put in on Wednesday of last week. You always talk to us like 50-year-old men are looking at tape and everything. How often does that happen where you see something, I think if we get this look and work, that it pays off big,
I'll tell you what's happened is that we have very good coaches in that room, and Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson are they're idea guys. And it's my job to make sure it doesn't stress and strain outside the confines of what we are and what we do. And that play fits perfectly. I can't remember who came up with it, but I kind of have to give the approval and look at it, and they say, what do you think, what do you think? And we kind of went through it. And but that happens quite often, when you have two coordinators. They're not co-coordinators, they're both coordinators. And they're both feeding off each other very good, very, very smart, very aggressive. That's what I like about them, as opposed to I have to be the aggressive guy. And they're very good. So when you have very, very smart, and they're very, now that they're very clear about what we are, they're fitting really nice into what we are and what JT can do. And that was a perfect example of the Heart 817 YC. And when it was called over the headset, I'll tell you what I said. Because I thought it was going to be a blitz fest down there, and they didn't blitz. That was perfect for the defense that they called.
Front row right, Bill?
Obviously, that was a huge win, opens up everything for the rest of the year, but every game now is a must win. What was your message to the team about enjoy this, understand what it means, but also bigger things are ahead?
You treat them like elite warriors, and elite warriors are trained to celebrate the win for whatever it is, 24 hours. Come back in, and I'll give you the next mission. And do all your best to. It's no different than I learned that from military people, the Navy SEALs. What does the Navy SEALs do when they execute and win? They celebrate like they should. They come back and wait for the next mission. And our players are celebrating, have a day off. They've already received their running orders. And part of it's getting your mind right, your body right for Tuesday practice.
And kind of following up on a question Tony asked about culture. If you didn't have the culture, the grinding kind of mentality, could you have come back and overcome what you did on Saturday?
No, that was a grind. That was never say never. Love a brother, long live the brotherhood type mentality. You don't win that game. When you spot a team like that, you spot on 14 points and everybody, the team last year would not have won that game. They would drop their head. Offensive line would have dropped their head.
Why is it different this year?
Maturity, Isaiah's older. Isaiah, I couldn't be more proud of that. You should have seen him in the locker room and on the sidelines of the game. He was a grown man. And it's just the maturation process. What happens is when you have recruiting mistakes or you have guys leave early, people are forced into positions too early to play. But it's not like we're the only team deals with that. And when guys get stuck too early, that they're not mature enough to handle it. That's where you got to rely on Billy Price, Greg Stugrawa, Kevin Wilson, Jamarco Jones to help them through that.
And with Isaiah, how worried were you going into that game? Well, he's improved, but that was obviously, he was exposed last year in the Penn State game. How big a game was Saturday for him?
He practiced. He had the best week of practice. He's unbelievable right now. I'm not worried about that. Isaiah, I'm not worried about him at all. He's a grown man that's handling this stuff the way an offensive tackle at Ohio State should.
Far right, play?
I'm getting old, so I forget stuff. Is this your first trip to Iowa?
I was a graduate assistant, we went to Kinnick Stadium, and Chris Carter made a ridiculous catch, and we beat him.
First,
Moxley got hurt. No, who was our left tackle? Cotterman. Tim, you remember that? You're like older than dirt, huh?
I remember Chris Carter play like it was 5 seconds
You don't remember
ago.
Cotterman got hurt? Cotterman got hurt,
Yeah.
and Tim Moxley went in the game.
Yeah,
Tim
Tim
Moxley,
Moxley.
he's a friend of mine.
From Barnesville.
You act like you know you do that.
No, I knew Tim Moxley from
Well, he got hurt, look it up.
Yeah,
It was either him or Schaefer went in the game,
I can't remember, yeah.
and they played their hearts out, and we won a really tough. That was back when, my gosh, they were good. It was a year after that, we played them out here in the rainstorm.
Right.
And Terry White hit that split splash.
Was that
That was remember the cover of Sports Illustrated? Don't act like, you remember that?
I was there.
Split splash, Iowa took a bath. Big of Ohio State fan.
Chip Long.
So who will you consult about playing there, since you haven't taken a team?
I know they're right on you. I know they touch your shoulder pads. I remember that. We'll do that later in the week. I haven't had time yet, but
You were vocal about playing Big Ten night games on the road. It seems to have worked. I mean, this game's 3:30, could have been a prime timer. You think you can affect, I mean, do you think
No,
you
I-
affected the
I don't
agenda?
have any idea, but I think that's something in the offseason there's going to be a lot of conversation about with our commissioner, with our presidents, with our, I want to make sure that we're having, if they say, Coach, shut your face, and you don't really care about that stuff, then I probably will look at the media when I tell them. That's what was said. You know, if you're getting home at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's going to impact your study. It does. Just ask the players. So I don't know if that had an impact or not, but I think down the road that there's some decisions to be made. And I certainly think a few night games are great. When you start talking about 4, that's too many.
Far left, Lori.
Coach, you talked about not micromanaging when you're talking about playing time and the way it's divvied up in the running backs. I'm curious how hard that is for you, and when you reached that point in your career where you were willing to let coaches coach.
Oh, if it's a good coach, and I trust him, and there's not a big difference between 1A and 1B. And I trust both the players because I watch them every day practice. I think it's that way with our receiver room right now. You know, I don't tell Zach Smith who to play. Because we used to have Mike Thomas, and then, you know, now you're dealing with, you know, KJ Hill. KJ Hill's a great player. Terry McLaurin, Johnny Dixon, Ben Victor, and Austin Mack, and then Paris Campbell. I believe you got to play. And same with running back right now. I think Mike Weber's really done a nice job. He's been humble because he went through the injury, and, you know, we were all expecting, you know, his goal is to try to get close to 2,000 yards, and someday I think he'll still have that shot to do that.
But that trust factor being key, how long does it take you to build that typically with a coach?
Well, it takes a minute. But if they're good, Tony Alford's an excellent football coach. And last thing he needs me to worry about that stuff.
Front row left, Doug.
Urban, we talked earlier in the season about trying to block a punt, and it might be harder these days to do that. How did you guys get that one?
Well, the guy who blocked it can run like the speed of sound, and it was tough to come off that back edge. And normally we don't do it that position on the field, because if you run into him, that's a nightmare. And I was talking with Greg Schiano at that time, and we kept staring at the clock and saying, if now, you know, so we did. I don't know if we've ever went after a punt in midfield like that, because they were in pooch punt. You even saw this drop. He was going to do that rugby type square drop that player, you know, that you do when you're down the punt. So practiced awful hard at it, and the execution was impeccable. And Damon Arnett had as much to do with that block punt as Denzel.
So when are you thinking we're going to get this? Like, you're making the decision, we're going to try for it. Knowing it's Denzel, you think you got a good shot?
I do, because of the way they practice. We spent a lot of time on that this week, and it never presented itself like that.
And just to click, is Paris a concussion protocol? Can you say his name?
I don't know. I don't want to give you something that's...
And then I know you were only worried about your game, but you spent a lot of good years at Florida. They just made a coaching change. When you have a guy, can it be hard when anybody has a lot of success there, and the next guys have to come in and try to duplicate it. I'm not asking you to criticize anybody at Florida, but they've had a tough time since you left. Why would that be?
I have no idea. Good enough to worry about here. And I love Florida. I love all the people down there. I wish them nothing but the best. And yeah, I don't have time to worry about that.
Front row right, Tim.
Urban, why is it that Iowa has a knack of getting teams in the fourth quarter with a chance to win? A little bit you've studied them.
That's exactly who they are.
Yeah.
That's exactly who they are.
What is it about them, the way they play?
I played him in the Outback Bowl when I was at Florida my first year in 2005. And sure enough, we started beating them pretty good. They just bleeded back into it. And we had to recover an onside kick to save the game. I mean, they're just tough. They're like their coach. The coach is a tough guy. They're like the state of Iowa. They're tough people. I love Iowa. I've never met too many people or players that just don't have that Iowa characteristic of toughness, and I'm going to hit you as hard as I can. And we played them here a few years ago, and it was a freaking, they came out in a 3 tight ends, and I think they went out 10-zip before we knew what was going on. So this will be as good a defensive line as we faced. It's the thing I love about their coach, who's a friend, is that the consistency is impeccable. I mean, it's like, you know, so many people change and always grasping for different ways of doing things. He's as consistent, tough as you can get. I think he does a great job.
Johnny Dixon, to me, is an example of a guy that, I call him an embedded player in the program that suddenly is coming on, just like KJ Hill. What is it about these guys? What do they, obviously he had to deal with chronic knee problems there. But what is it about these guys that kind of see the light? Is it opportunity? What is it that you think?
Yeah, you talk to you gave some good stories. There's also storylines of a few that haven't.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd rather not talk about that. But I think it has to do, I just called his high school coach today. 15 minutes ago, we talked to him on the speakerphone, me and Johnny. And he came from that kind of program. He comes from that kind of family. They don't know quit. And they know that at some point that rock will break if you keep hitting it. That's no different than Antonio Williams. That's no different. I can go down the list of guys that are from that are raised that kind of way. Unfortunately, other guys are raised the other way. Say, man, this is tough. I'm out. And those, unfortunately, they don't really make it wherever they go.
And let's say, you know, everybody, much ballyhoo was made of this defensive line group, defensive ends especially, the depth, et cetera. When you watch the last 5 minutes of that game from Saturday night, what just comes to mind when you think about it? Because it literally, defensively, y'all just played sickle. What just stands out as you think about those guys?
Well, I just flip over to listen to the defensive coaches, what they're saying. And you know, I heard Larry Johnson say, let them go. In those kind of moments, are you going to blitz, are you going to twist, are you going to say, let them go? And they were, I mean, my gosh. And the one thing is we have that depth right now. You're playing 30, 35 plays, you're as fresh as you can be as I've ever seen a defensive line. You talk about the 2 minutes left in the game, and they're as fresh as they are in 5 minutes to go at the beginning of the game.
Does Hubbard's tackle rank right there with Joey Bosa's?
The 2-for-1?
Bosa's walk-off sack, you know, where he shoved the running back into Hackenberg.
Does it go?
Does it rank right up there as an incredible play?
You asked me to rank it?
Yeah.
One last question, Ryan, over here.
Urban, every team has a different personality. I'm sure you can pick the teams at BG, Utah, Florida, here. What defines this team? And
I think it's still to be determined. You know, I mean, earlier, you know, in my career, I'll make a comment, and there's still too much going on right now. If the focus is there, this is going to be a decent ending. If the focus somehow gets abstracted by talk of other stuff, then we'll be an average team. But there's a lot of ball left right now.
there's not a personality, there's not a person.
Big time. But I'm not going to, it's too early. We got to go beat Iowa.
Coach, thank you very much.